Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Pedagogically Speaking, the podcast where we're growing, where you reflect, and we are thriving as educators together. I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Alon Heffer. I'm an inclusive education teacher, mentor, and someone who spent years walking alongside teachers, going through the highs, the lows, and all my favorite messy parts in between. This podcast is my way of sharing the wisdom that we're gaining from each other, not from textbooks, but from the lived experiences that we share day to day. Welcome to my guest, Amanda. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I feel like your intro was just so lovely.
Oh, thanks. I never know if I like talking too fast. The whole reason I do this is because I just want to build a community. I harp on about it every single episode, but taking away the collaboration time that teachers had was really just, I think, it just made us so much more isolated than we've ever been before, and, yeah, so I really struggle with that.
Yeah, anything we can do to build community, like, why not?
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming, and I'd love to start with just how did you get into teaching? What were you like as a kid?
I feel like what I was like as a kid was probably like that weird, nerdy kid. I was convinced I was adopted growing up.
Oh my
'Cause
gosh, me too!
I found like in my family, I have a younger brother and sister and a kid who liked to read. And they were not. And then I did well in school and they didn't, like my parents didn't. And so like it just never felt like I don't know, like, at home, it was a little bit more like, "Is am I adopted, really?" Or, like, "Is there something wrong with me?" And, like, I tried to, like, fit in, but, like, it definitely didn't work.
Yeah.
Um, I loved school growing up, like, when I would play with my siblings, we would play school. I was always the teacher because, like, that's just I feel like maybe, like, the little bit of control I felt like I had in my life, even though, my siblings were not, um, not a fan of me being in the control, when when they were, like, I don't know, like, 4, like, ish years
That's
old.
so cute.
They did not wanna sit down and do math homework, and I thought math homework was really fun. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so growing up, like, I loved school, I loved, like, learning, reading, like, all of that, like, was my jam, like, the people around, I was like, "I don't care, I'm just gonna be my little nerdy self," and, I made friends when Pokemon became a thing, and, like, we all, like, dove into the Pokemon phase, um and yeah, and then, like, going through high school, I just really wanted to stick with, like, the academic courses, like, in Ontario, we could do, like, academic courses or applied courses, and, like, academic was, like, the university path, and no one else in my family had gone to, post-secondary, so I was the first one. Um, I double majored in math and French, and even then even then, I was like well, like, no one else had done that before at my, university, and so they had to create a special, like, program, path, like, for me to get that double major, and
That's
that was,
so
like, a
cool.
four-year program, and then I did my one-year B.Ed afterwards,
The
and
same
then right
university?
from there, I, like, jumped into teaching, like, I feel like teaching has always been the path, and even now, it's still, like, looking at my family, it's like I'm still, like, the nerdy one who likes to read and learn and loves school, and, they're like, "You know what? You go for it, Amanda." So, yeah.
That's cute. I have a question. So I also thought I was adopted. I don't look anything like my mom or my sister.
Yeah.
And so I was absolutely convinced I was adopted. And it was like the 80s. It was right around there was a lot of like TV shows about like switched at birth and things like that. And I'm just curious, what did your parents say to you when you're like, "Am I adopted?"
I don't know if I ever actually asked them,
Oh,
because I think there was, like, just a lot of shame around identity. Like, my mom is Indian and has brown skin, and my dad is, like, British ancestry. Like, I don't know actually much about his, I just know he's very, very white, and my mom is not. I would like when I was little, like go into my so growing up, like my grandparents lived in our house. There was like 8 of us under one roof, with 3 bedrooms, and like it was a full house, but my nana, who's like my maternal grandmother, she like had her makeup and like she's also brown. And like growing up, I would just like take like her makeup and put it on. And then I was like, this like doesn't match. Like it's
Right.
very different. And so like a lot of that, like just like noticing like the racial differences between like myself like, being white passing and my mom who is brown and like my grandparents living with us like were brown like as
Yeah,
well. That's where
that
like
would have
those
been
questions came up and then
confusing.
like hearing like the racism that was happening like within my family as well. It was like there's like a shame attached with asking questions about like who am I? Like, there's, like, a lot of shame connected to, like, the Indian ancestry as well, like, my grandparents, like, my nana, would lie about being Indian, so
Wow.
yeah. So, like, the thoughts of, like, "Am I adopted?" were, like, rooted in, like, my personality, but then also, like, the racial differences.
That must have been so
Yeah.
hard too, growing up with that, like having questions, but having to kind of like internalize everything and just like keep it to yourself, but then also listening to what's happening around you. That must have been very difficult.
Yeah, I feel like as a kid, like, I dissociated a lot from what was going on around me, and so, like, it was more as an adult, like, thinking back, I was like, "Oh, like, maybe it was, like, the racism I was hearing that, like, for some of that dissociation as well," and, yeah, so I've been sitting a lot with my identity over the past, like, couple years now and trying to figure out, like, where do I fit?
Right.
And I think, like, a lot of, like, biracial folks, like, experience, like, those sort of questions too, just from, like, what I've seen in the community I've built there, but and I know, like, I realize, like, I do have a lot of privilege, like, being white passing, to be able to, like, sit and think with that and not be forced to confront it, um, always. Yeah.
But also, there's something to be said too for about having all of that inside of you, but then not being able to say, I look like this person. I mean, we're sharing an experience too. That's also very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you always wanted to be a teacher, and like I hear math and French majors and I think high school. So high school?
So I always thought that I was gonna be teaching, like, younger kids, like, when I was going through, like, my university programming. In Ontario, we had to choose, like, almost like the grade group that we wanted to, specialize in, and so I went with a primary junior, which is K to 6, and so, like, I did my practicums, like, in those grades. But then my very first job was in Saskatchewan doing grades 6 to 12 core French in 1
Oh,
semester,
brutal.
and, like, I was pumped to do it, but also, like, terrified, and I was like, "It's a job, I've got student loans to pay, let's move to the
Right.
middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan." Um, like, yeah, moving from, like, the Greater Toronto area to a town of, like, no more than 2,000 people. It was very, like, religious farming community. I just
Whew,
really jumped right into that, but yeah,
good
like, I
for
did my
you.
grade 6 to 12, um, and then, like, for the time that I was in Saskatchewan, I was a high school math and French teacher, and it was moving to BC where I was like, more so forced, back into the primary group, like, from Saskatchewan, I had, like, 9 to 12, then I moved here into a grade 4 or 5 job, and then the following year was grade 1, 2, and I was like,
Mm,
"They that's a big jump," like, the kids really went from, like, being, like, super tall grade, like, 12 students down to, like, super little grade 1 students,
yeah,
but yeah.
that's amazing. So I grew up downtown Toronto, like on Brunswick Avenue. So what is that? Spadina and College. Where did you grow up?
I was in Brampton.
Oh, okay.
That's why I say,
Yes.
like, the Toronto area because
Greater
sometimes people
Victoria
don't
or
know.
Greater Toronto area.
Yeah, the
Yeah. Okay.
GTA.
Yeah, that must have been so okay. So Brampton to Saskatoon?
Eventually, it was Saskatoon, initially, it was Outlook.
Okay, you lived in Email Town.
Yep, yep, so it was an hour south of Saskatoon, so I did live in Saskatoon, and then I drove an hour each way to work.
So what, like do you view challenges as something to just overcome, or was it like that's where you got the job, so that's where you went?
I honestly didn't even think of it as like, "Oh, I'm looking for a challenge, let's overcome it." It was, "I've got student loans to pay, I am
Yeah,
applying for all the jobs across the country, I wanna get out of Ontario." But, like, also, like, applying in Ontario, like, it was generally known, like, you're on the sub list for about 10 years before you get a contract, and I was like,
yeah,
I've got student loans to pay." Um,
totally.
yeah, so it was Outlook was the first one that offered me, like, a full-time gig, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's go."
That's amazing. Did you drive yourself and all your stuff over, or
Yeah, so my dad and my brother helped pack up my stuff, and we drove on out. It was quite an adventure, yeah.
cool? And then, so you have 2 younger siblings. I assume they were still living at home when you left?
I'm trying to think, I think so. Yeah, they both were.
Alright.
Um, yeah, I was the only one, like, who had moved out, and it was, like, to go to university, so
So when you got there and you unpacked and everyone left, how did that feel?
Um, I think, like, freeing a bit, like, I was excited to get away from, like, some of the people from university and then, like, family stuff as well. It was just nice to be on my own, but then also being like, "Oh my goodness, I am on my own." Like, I literally know no one in Saskatchewan or, like, either of the neighboring provinces. Like, this is wild, and, like, my partner and I had been together for about a year at that time, and I was like, "I'm moving, you can come with me, or, like, peace out, like, we can go our separate ways." And we're like, "Well, we'll see how things go," until, like, after a month or so of me being in Saskatchewan, he ended up doing the move on over as well, so
Very cool.
yeah. So I did have someone eventually, but, like, that
Okay.
first month I was, like, by myself completely.
And it's the first month that'll get you. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh my
that
god.
first month can be, like, make or break it because it's 4 weeks, which feels like a long time, and you
Yeah.
could either just go a little stir, like, have it all affect you, or, yeah, I guess you could just be okay and know that there's that hope that they're gonna come.
And I always say, like, my first year of teaching was probably the easiest year because, like, the
Wow.
colleagues I had at that school were phenomenal. They were checking in on me, like, because the town was so small and, like, I initially moved there, but, like, a month there was, like, too much, and so I did move, like, to Saskatoon and did the commute. But, like, everyone knew where everyone lived and, like, we're checking in on each other, like, you'd go out and everyone knew, like, "Oh, you're the new teacher," like, "You're" like, I was like, "That's just a little, like, too much." I do need some privacy, but, like, the colleagues were amazing, like, they were always checking in on me, like, we had a group then, in Saskatoon, and we would carpool into town
Cool.
together. Yeah, like, I still think back to, like, that first year, even though, like, the students like, there's one cohort of students that was challenging, like, the grade 9s were just a riot, but, like, that bit aside, like, the students were great, the families were great, like, the colleagues were great, like, I was really sad to leave that school after the first year, um, but, like, yeah, that definitely helped with the move to a new province,
Yeah,
like
totally.
a grade group I wasn't anticipating teaching and subjects I didn't know I'd be teaching. Like that first semester, it was core French, which is great, but the second semester was health, science, socials, careers, math. I think there were like 8 different subjects on my course load,
It's
um,
mean.
and still had a blast. It was it was a learning curve, but, like, I love learning. So, yeah,
Lifelong learner. What
yeah.
was the carpooling in winter like? Like, I cannot imagine driving an hour in Saskatchewan in, like, the 8 months that winter.
only 8 months. I feel like sometimes it's 9 or 10. I feel like it's Thanksgiving
Fair.
weekend to the May long weekend is winter. Um,
Oof.
but yeah, it was a lot more intense than I thought it would be. I learned that all cars that are made in Canada have a block heater. So I was like trying to look around, like, how do I get a block heater installed? My car already had one
Oh,
because it was made in
cool.
Canada. So, but like the snow, like I learned what storm stayed meant. Because there was one morning, like we drove into town together, and then there was so much snow that the highway was like completely covered and we couldn't get back home. So we slept at our vice principal's house. Um, and we like, because there were a few teachers that all came into town, and then, like, none of us could leave, so a bunch of us were at our vice principal's house, and we were like, "They're gonna cancel school tomorrow," so we were drinking and just having a good time, and then school was not canceled because all the kids were also stuck in town. So we all had to go to work the next day, and, when all like, almost all the teachers are wearing the same clothes and we're all hungover, it was, I think a
Amazing.
cultural, like, experience that was, but, like, we were stuck in town for, like, 3 days. They had to get bulldozers, like, to come out and, like, clear the highway. Mhm. Yeah, and, like,
That's wild.
the snow drifts, like, it was I feel like I learned how to be a good driver by driving in Saskatchewan.
That's great.
We drove with, like, horses running down the side of the highway with us. We saw moose all the time. The northern lights were, like, a common thing, so
That's
yeah,
very cool.
yeah.
So then how did you end up in where you are now?
Yeah, so I knew, like, Saskatchewan wasn't, like, the forever home. It was, I need to stay here to pay off student loans, and they have this grad retention program, so if you have a degree from, like, wherever and you are living in Saskatchewan, they, like, give you some returns when you do your taxes,
Nice.
for 5 or 7 years, like, they pay you money to essentially stay in the province. So that, like, helped pay off the loans. But then in 2017, BC had the Supreme Court win, and they were hiring a lot of teachers, and I knew, like, West Coast is where I wanna be, like, my partner's in the tech industry, so we knew, like, BC was where we were hoping to end up. So yeah, 2017, I got on the TOC list, and I was like, "You know what? That's enough for me. I'm gonna move on out there. It's got French immersion. Someone's gonna hire me." And my partner already had a job lined up and had been working remotely anyways.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I know you are union activist now. Did that start in Saskatchewan or did that all kind of come into play here?
That definitely came into play here, and I was talking to my partner this morning about how, like, knowing what I know now, I would have, like, spoken up more when I was teaching in Saskatoon, because I was, like, teaching more than 100%. Like, they had given me an extra course with, like, students. It was wild. I was working over my spring break, had no idea. And class sizes out there also were ridiculous, like 38 kids. Like,
It's wild.
like, it was chaotic, and I didn't realize that until coming here. And then my first year here, like, I was in the same district, like, where you are now, and I was experiencing violence in the classroom, but I just assumed, well, like, this is normal. Like, I didn't know any better. So, like, I didn't say anything or do anything. I just continued to work, with the student, like, to the best of my abilities. But then when I switched to the district where I am now, um, I had, like, some friends who were already involved, like, on our local union exec, and they were like, "Amanda, come join us." And so, like, I drank the Kool-Aid and joined, and I was just, like, responsible for, like, scholarships, like, our local
Nice.
scholarships we do for graduating students, and so it's like the the kind part of like the union work. So it was really nice, like a nice gentle way to get involved. And then I got involved in like the social justice side of things. And now I'm released as second VP in health and safety chair. So
Amazing.
um I feel like now I'm like deeply involved in union
Yeah.
activism. And I think that's more like as I've learned about like social justice and like working conditions and like all of that side of things where I'm like, ooh, like how can we expect teachers to do a good job like if we aren't also fighting in whatever capacity we can for better working conditions and like through union activism, I feel like that's like a route to do that.
Yeah.
And like I do look forward to going back to the classroom and like working with students. Like my overall goal has always been like make the world a better place in whatever way I can. And I think life has brought me to union work right now, and we'll see where it goes next.
That's amazing. Um, I have a question. I'm gonna keep going back to Saskatoon, or sorry, to Outlook.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you didn't realize. So you were working these conditions. You were working more hours than you were getting paid to than you were supposed to. You had 38 kids in classes. Did it just seem normal because everyone was doing it?
I
Like, did
think
everyone have
more
the same thing?
I think it was more because I was new and didn't know better. Like I was just like so excited to be a teacher. Like the class sizes was like a normal thing. So like my first year I was doing grade 6 to 12 core French. The class sizes there were like smaller. Like I wouldn't say more than 30, 32. And like I think that like just seemed like generally okay. And it was manageable. And there were enough desks for the kids. So like there wasn't like any red flags going off there. But the second year is when I got a job in Saskatoon and was working in Saskatoon. And with that, like that's where I saw like in our French immersion department, we had classes of 38 just because of how like our schedules were split is what we ended up with. Um, yeah, like I think it and then like the extra course that was thrown on to me was like again like a French immersion course. And so like my colleagues in like the English stream, like they weren't experiencing the same things because French immersion is a unique program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so it wasn't necessarily being, except for the class size composition, it wasn't really being normalized around you. But when you think about your experiences in another province and you think about your experiences here, do you think that one of the ways that teachers sort of forget to, like, maybe not forget to, but like don't participate in union work is because so many things have become normalized in the classroom?
Like, I think that's part of it. In Saskatoon and like in Saskatchewan in general, like when I was there, I didn't know much of anything about our union. Like I knew that's like I would go to the website to look up resources because they had a lot of great resources, but I didn't know anything about like any of the supports. Like even in my very last year in Saskatoon, I was being harassed by a student. I was on a medical leave from it
Mm,
and I went to, like, the provincial, like, Saskatchewan Teachers Federation building, and I met with the president, and at the time, unfortunately, like, they didn't know how to support me, like, they didn't offer any supports, I know here we have, different ways of supporting folks who are off on medical leaves, but
yes.
then it was nothing. So, like, there was no one advocating for me, like, to the employer, like, I was on my own, with that, and so, like, I didn't, like, really know what unions were
Yeah.
meant for at the time, and I think, like, as a newer teacher, I was also really just focused on, like, I wanna make sure, like, I'm doing a good job, I need to have my lesson plans done every day, I need to make sure I'm, like, marking everything that students do and, like, all these things. I was like, "No, like, I don't need, like, full-on lesson plans, like, done every day, I don't need to be marking every single thing a student does," but, like,
Yeah.
at the time, like, it was
That's what
more focused on the work than, like, the job.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so interesting that it's instilled in us to, like, just be a good worker. I remember, like, my mom never took a day off of work, and I remember being terrified the first day I kind of took a day off of work when I wasn't, like, dying of illness, but I was sick, and I remember being so scared, and I and I told her this one day, and she was just like, "No, no, no, I worked that hard so you could take a sick day." I was like, "That's fair," but there is this, like, and I think it's still extremely pervasive in beginning teachers and I think more than just beginning teachers of this idea that, like, "Oh, well, my principal has to like me because that's the only way I'm gonna be able to keep my job or get another job or anything," and it's like, "No, no, it's all seniority now."
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I think that's something that's really needs to be, I guess, communicated better. And then do you find that a lot of people are getting involved in union activism, or do you still think that it's something that's a bit, like, taboo? What are your thoughts?
Like, personally, I would love to see more people get involved in union activism. Like, knowing, like, we're working in a capitalist society and really, like, the workers are the majority, and so, like, the more that workers can unite, like, the more change we can bring forward. Um, so, like, I think part of my thought too is that, like, for workers who say, like, "Oh, I don't like the union," or whatever, it's like, you are the union. Like, whether you like it or not, like, you
Yeah.
are the union. And so, like, if you don't like something, get involved. Like, how are you gonna change things if you, like, just sit by and, like, don't engage? Um like, there are times, like, in the office now, like, where we do hear from folks who aren't happy with, like, decisions we've made or, like, whatever it may be. And it's like, you know what? Like, I'm glad that they are, like, comfortable enough reaching out because, like, we don't know what we don't know, right? So, I would love more folks to get engaged with their union, even if it is, like, just finding a way to communicate with the folks who are, like, elected to be members of the exec. I would love to see more, like, I don't wanna say, like, turnover, because like, turnover sounds like it's a bad thing, but I'd love to see that more, like, more new faces are coming to, like, the exec table. Like, I don't think there should really be, like, people that hold, like, the same position for, like,
Yeah.
forever. Right, and, like, I think too, if there's gonna be, like, a head of a union, like, you'd want them to have, like, that classroom experience, and, like, there's only so much time you can spend out of the classroom, um, before you, like, become disconnected from really knowing, like, what's happening in it, and I think, like, we see that with, like, concerns around, like, employer side is, like, well, they don't get it, they're never in the schools. It's like
Exactly.
we sometimes, like, build those systems into our union structures as well, so it's a long way of saying, like, I would love to see more union activism. I think I'm seeing a lot more, like, younger workers getting involved in union activism, which is exciting,
Of
because I know they're also really protective of their time, and they're more likely to say no to, like, the extracurricular kind of things too, so, um, engagement, love to see more of it. The engagement I am seeing, like, is great. Um, yeah.
No, that's cool. I agree. Like, I think a lot of young people are doing union stuff, and I actually really love the new teachers that are coming in that are really protecting their boundaries because I think that's something that's really made teaching unhealthy for a lot of folks. Of like, you were used to doing, the clubs after school or the clubs at lunch and all of this stuff, but it's become so much more. I was saying to Ange in a previous episode that I remember when I was, I know it was the 80s and early 90s, but when I was at school, all those basketball games were during school time. Like some of them, yes, would be after school, but not all of them. And so it was more manageable. But you also just had more, you had release time and you had collab time. Like nothing just felt like it was just completely sucking everything away from you. And I just think now it's like teachers are using their own money in their classrooms. We don't even have textbooks really anymore. All the resources are supposed to come from us or we're supposed to pay for them. And I find it really difficult when, a school district says, well, isn't it great because you can choose your own resources and you have so much more, control over it. And yes, but then like, where did that budget go? And can you allot extra money so that we can make our resources. Like, resource making is so time consuming and you don't get that back.
Yeah, like it's funny you mentioned that because like this summer I moved and like also being in the union space, like I packed up my entire classroom. And so from packing up my classroom like 2 years ago now to like moving it all from like my previous place to here just this past summer, like this is a lot of stuff that like, I've purchased like, my classroom was bare when I got it, and it was bare when I left it, and part of me, like, being involved in the union work for just, like, the year and a half or so that I've been in the office, like, when I go back to the classroom, I don't think I'm bringing any of the stuff back with me, at least not anytime soon. Like, the printed stuff, sure, but, like, the books, like, why am I building the class library? Like, when, like, our curriculum and, like, our, districts and, like, everything is really saying, like, literacy is so important and, like, there's battles over how literacy should be taught, but if they are really valuing literacy, then, like, put put the money, like, into it, like, where are the resources? Um
Exactly.
and so, yeah, I think when I do eventually go back to the classroom, like, I think I am gonna choose to start with an empty room and see, like, how much can I actually get done, with what's provided to me. And
It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
I think that's amazing, and I absolutely agree with you because if literacy is so important and it's such a push for literacy, and we have screeners to do for K to 3, then how come our libraries have less money than they've ever had to purchase books? Why don't we have subscriptions to, like, Epic or I can't think of another online one, but there's others. And then why don't we have more books? Why are the, like, parent association groups having to purchase books for schools? Like, where how does this any of it make sense, you know? And one of the things too, so my daughter is 9 years old now, and I haven't thrown out a single book, and I am a she has over 350 books. I stopped counting at 350. And I'm like, "I can't this is gold, like, I'm gonna need this because 'cause I'm an inclusive education teacher. If I ever go back to the classroom, I'm gonna need all these books because you can't get books, or, like, if you can, they're none of them are in color because they've all been photocopied from, like, a license that the district has."
yeah.
Oh.
And
No,
then
it's
even,
real.
like, seeing how, like, there have been schools even devastated by fires and by, like, natural disasters, like,
Yes.
insurance doesn't cover, like, all the stuff we bring into our spaces, and so, like, I don't know, I think there are obviously huge gaps in, like, a system that is so severely underfunded, and when teachers are, like, screaming from the rooftops about, like, the system is underfunded, like, we want to do well, but, like, like, you need resources in order to be able to do well, like, there's only so much, like, one person can do when they're in front of a class of, like, 20,
Yeah.
25 kids.
No, 100%. And actually, it's interesting too that you said about the blank canvas, like a classroom, is on New Zealand's teacher Facebook post that I read recently because I still like to keep track on those things. She got the classroom, and her post was just like, "There's nothing in the classroom. I think the teacher stole all of the school's resources," and it was like 50 responses of like that teacher bought all those resources. And if that teacher had been teaching for 10 years or more, they would have had a lot of resources. And they have, and of course, they have every right to take the resources back. But I think, how are we going to, yes, education needs more funding. We all know that. But how can we ensure that the funding actually reaches the schools? I know personally when I'm in front of students and I'm talking to families and I have to say I don't have enough resources, or I don't have enough time to meet all of the needs. Like, I feel like I'm personally responsible to these humans who have a right to education, and I meet their basic needs at the moment.
No, absolutely. And I think like as a classroom teacher, I absolutely feel that. Like I know like we say like we need more money and then we're like, where is the money going that like we do have? And it often feels like a lot of that money gets stuck up at the top and not down like in the classrooms where teachers are seeing it. And I know like our QP colleagues are also like asking for like resources and like more staffing in order to get the jobs done that need to be done, like with custodial hours being cut and like not enough EAs to support like the student needs that are so clearly there. Like a lot of like the staffing is really staffed so close to ratio or, like, is failing to meet that ratio, so, like, there's, like, that piece, and so, like, I think in general, there's a lot of feeling like it gets stuck up there and doesn't come down to the workers. It gets the board of trustees that, like, are passing budgets. If the trustees are out of touch with what the needs are, then we're not really ever gonna see those funds trickle down where they need to be. And I think working on building relationships with trustees, I think it's building that relationship where we can. And if we, then how can we build relationships with management side so that we can help those folks see what it's like in schools? Um, like, the trustees, like, are the ones that hire our superintendents, and so, like, if we're able to sort of, like, get those 2 in line with where we see the needs and, like, we can advocate and hope for the best, but it's really there, where those decisions are made, and so, like, if there are budget presentations happening, if there are public board meetings where folks can go to and speak to some of the concerns, then I think that's something we can do to help advocate. Families writing to government as well. There are places where we can advocate for these changes, but because we're so buried in the work that we're actually doing on the ground, it's sometimes hard to expand a little beyond that. But there are pathways for that advocacy. And it's just being able to like connect with the folks who have the capacity to do that. Another way to encourage getting in contact with your unions because they are having conversations around budget and they are in conversation with trustees and like HR.
You know, that's so true. That's so right. We all do have, I think, a responsibility and a way forward that we can advocate if we're parents or teachers or EAs. So, yes, thank you for that. Did you ever, when you started pri-NBC and then before you started kind of with the union staff, did you ever kind of believe that staying quiet would protect you? We talked a little bit about this earlier with like beginning teachers and not wanting to sort of rock the boat and just thinking, okay, I'm just here to do my job. And did you ever have that as well where like, something was going on and you thought, I'm just not going to say anything?
Always. Yeah, like, even in, like, the union work, I try to think, like, if I say this, what are the repercussions? And so then it often forces, like, it if it needs to be said, then how to say it. But, like, yeah, as a classroom teacher, like, there were absolutely things where I was like, "This" like, how do I move forward when I'm seeing that this is happening? And also, like I think, like, in Saskatchewan, like, because our admin were a part of the same union as teachers, there was a little bit more space to be open with admin. But here, because, like, we are different unions, like, it's tough because, like, people are people and, like, you can have positive relationships with, like, your administrators. At the end of the day, they are your employer, and you just need to be cautious of, like, the things that you are saying. You know, if you're talking to your employer, if you're talking to a colleague, where is that going to? And so, like, that, like, friendship line is often one that, I think I've just been a little bit more cautious of. I love working with them, but there is always that a little bit of guard up there, or more awareness. Yeah.
Totally. What is, have you ever thought, because especially now with much advocacy you're doing, has there anything that's ever stopped you in your tracks and just made you feel like, how am I going to keep going with this? Like, I don't think I can do this anymore.
I don't think I've experienced that yet. There have been moments where I'm like, "This is a lot of work, and I'm only one person." But, like, one of, like, the first things I heard, like, with my first, like, couple weeks in the union office was, like, "We're not saving lives." And so I think, like, thinking of that has really helped me let things go a little bit more. I know there's like responsibilities because grievance procedures, there are timelines to meet. I would say like legal things that we have to make sure get done. When a lawyer reaches out to us and says, "Hey, we need this," we have to get it to them because if we don't, then we're potentially putting the rights of the collective agreement rights of our workers at risk. And so there is some responsibility there, but I think just well, I'm here to make my goal is to make things better for folks, for teachers, and thereby for students. Um, like the idea of like, if you pay me, but I know union work, just like classroom work, there is a lot of volunteer time that goes into it. And so I think just really taking a look at what work is coming across my desk that is like, important and has to happen and what work can be let go. And I think I'm still figuring that out. Something that happened last year that was hard and it was just something I didn't yet know how to do. But I came out on the other end of it and I was like, okay, cool. If I can survive that, then like I'm good for now. um, but yeah, like, I do, like, miss being in the classroom as well, so I think really it's more like that classroom pull more so than, "This is awful and I want out," but, like, so far, like, we have, like, good working relationships with people and, like, it makes it a bit easier to, like, work through the hard stuff knowing that, um, like, there's still a care that exists from both sides.
No, that is really beneficial when you both do care and but you're just seeing maybe you're seeing something in 2 different ways, and you just have to kind of bridge that. When you were working so before you were in the office and when you were doing the scholarships and you were working in a school, did that activism or, like, kind of being that close to union ever make you feel a little isolated at work? Like, did anyone treat you a little bit differently?
Maybe a little. My transition into union work was also around pandemic time,
Yeah.
and my own personal coming out at work. There was all this stuff that was intertwined, so it's hard to say why things felt the way they felt. Um, but I think with local bargaining, provincial bargaining, there are folks that just have certain feelings towards unions in general. Um, and that's where I come back to, like, the you can feel how you wanna feel, but you're a part of the union, so at the very least, like, cast your vote when the contract comes to us and go from there.
The little bit of union work that I did, I do know that I had to sometimes I actually asked our contractor to braid my hair one day for a meeting because I was like, "I need to feel that kind of, like, hair braid power," and I'm usually in pajama adjacent clothing, but for certain things, I would put on certain clothes just to kind of help myself kind of maybe feel a bit braver or, you know, certain clothes make you breathe a bit different, at least for me. And union work is courage work. It is work where you are kind of like saying, "Hey, this isn't really fair. Or this isn't this is unsafe," or like we need to work on this. Like, can we work together? And I think that's very difficult. And I think we're also taught at a very young age that that work is difficult, right? Like, even though it's hard, you have to stand up to people who are, putting people down or knocking over your block tower or whatever. And I just think, what does courage look like or feel like to you when you're not feeling brave?
Hmm. That's a good question, like, I think you talking about the clothing is making me think of, my own experiences with clothes, and I think when I was teaching high school, it was the dress pants, nicer shoes, a nicer top because I wasn't down on the floor with students.
Right.
And because my first job out of university was teaching high school, the age gap between like, grade 12s and myself was so small that I was like, I need to like differentiate myself like a little
Yeah.
bit more. And then teaching elementary school, it's like, "No, I need comfy pants, comfy clothes. I'm down on the floor and this floor is disgusting." Um, and it was, I don't know, like track pants quickly became a comfortable
Norm.
thing to wear because
Totally.
I know that I was comfortable with the content and, like, all of that, that I knew my knowledge was good, and so the clothes could be comfy. But then going from grade 1 to into the union office, I was like, "I can't be wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt every day. One, feel like I don't know enough for this work, and so I can't also look like I'm ready to get down on the floor with grade 1 students. Um, so I got, like, the because, like, graphic tees were, like, always my thing in elementary
Oh,
school because, like, social justice messages, and that's just one of the things I enjoyed wearing, but then in the union, I was like, "No one else is wearing graphic tees. I think I need to get some clothes that don't have any graphics on the front and are just, like, solid colors." And got a blazer when we were doing local bargaining. That was the day I put on my dress pants and a blazer. But then, like, it's funny, like, every morning when I'm thinking, "What am I wearing today?" I look at, like, what meetings do I have that are in person versus, like, chest up and, like,
yes.
dress accordingly. But otherwise, I think, like, the pieces that help the confidence, maybe more so than, like, the courage side of things is if I'm going to be talking about something in a meeting that I don't know as much about, I have to spend time reading whatever policies exist, looking at the collective agreement language, and feeling like I'm coming into it with more knowledge than if I had just shown up. Um because I know, like, when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, even though I can feel calm, my face will go red, I'll get all, like,
Yes.
splotchy all over, and I'm like, "No, like, I look like a nervous wreck, but I swear I'm not."
Feel
Um,
fine.
yeah. So it's
It's
like I
perfect
will
for
go
me.
home
I'm
and
at
I'll, like,
the
cry I will go home and I'll cry about it afterwards, but it's just, like, the stress needs to get out of me.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, like, I think it's just, like, coming in with the knowledge and, like, looking like I know what I'm talking about, which is wild because I think that those expectations on men are very different.
thank
Um,
you.
but that's a whole other capitalism, patriarchy, like, cis heteronormativity, like,
It's another
what a mess
episode.
we have to navigate.
I know it's wild, this teaching this profession that's, like, dominated by, quote, unquote, "women" that I've only had male principals. And, like, most of the people that the district that I talked to were all, uh, identified as men, so it's just so interesting ho these, places of power.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is breaking your heart right now about where education is?
I think the amount of violence that is experienced, in classrooms, um, is what's breaking my heart. I hear from teachers on a daily basis, um, where they've tried everything they can to try to support students, whose needs aren't being met at school, and they want to do their best. They are like, "This is happening, what can I do?" And it's like, sometimes, like, a medical leave is, like, what's needed just to, like, help you feel, like, whole again. Um, Sometimes it's, like, the work refusal process where, like, that's, like, a quick way to advocate for supports, like, for you, but also for your students. But,
Yeah,
like, it is, like, a challenging process or a difficult process to go through, and I feel like a lot of folks are resistant to that because they're like, "But what about the kids? I don't wanna be away from the students." But when the needs aren't being met, when the staffing resources aren't there, um, when there's so much this is a curriculum we have to teach, and there's not as much space for that trauma-informed practice to actually happen because there's still like, "Well, we've got this reporting order, and we need to report on all of these things," and that's great and all, but that's also assuming that we aren't experiencing trauma. Our curriculum hasn't changed since, like, before the pandemic. We have lived through a collective trauma, and we're still expected to meet the same criteria as before when clearly things have changed. Like, we know that families are like struggling to like financially make ends meet when like families are working more like to support like the cost of living when like during the pandemic like families were able to spend more time at home because they were able to work at home, and now that they might not have that opportunity there for them, like there's this whole shift in how are we supporting these kids.
Yeah.
And well, it's still you gotta check these boxes because the curriculum is the same and we aren't putting additional resources into schools to support the kids, to support the staff. The violence piece is what's breaking my heart because we're seeing how widespread it is, and I don't think it's the kid's fault. I don't think it's the teacher or like EA's fault. I don't think it's anyone anyone's fault. I think we have policies that we're following and the policies haven't followed where like the people are. They aren't people centered. So yeah.
Yeah, the policies and also just the fact that this is when you have underfunded education, this is what's going to happen. We don't have the resources to help these students as much as we can. And yeah, families are working more than they've ever worked before for less. And what do you do with that? What are you paying? Are you paying your heat? Are you paying for the groceries? You know, it's, it's a wild world that we're living in right now. Um, I'm finding, you've mentioned that violence has been happening a lot. You've been listening to it a lot more than just this year. I also have been hearing about it where I've been working and where I've worked. And something new I'm finding is that it used to be this is extreme and I'm not getting support and I'm going on medical leave because, it turned into a medical issue legitimately, of course. And what I'm seeing now are teachers saying, I'm not going on medical leave. This shouldn't be happening. And that's a huge shift, at least for me, and like the small corner of education that I see. Are you seeing anything like that as well? Are you seeing teachers just saying being so over fed up that they're like, no, fix it?
I think so. And like I'll say like yes, because I'm seeing more work refusals happening.
Yes, yes, of course. You said that.
So as frequently as I'm seeing, well, like daily, I'm hearing from folks who are wondering like how do I deal with the violence that's happening in my classroom? Um, at least 2 times a week, I'm hearing from folks asking about how to go on a medical leave. And, like, that's probably one of the biggest questions, like, we're seeing across the province is how do we go on a medical leave? Um, but yeah, like the fact that like I've supported folks through more work refusals this year than I had last year. I know that's not a huge data set to
No, say that.
analyze, but I think that is speaking to the fact that one, folks are a bit more aware of the rights that they have as workers. And two, they know more of the process of okay, doing this isn't getting support, this isn't getting support, this isn't. So, like, the next step I'm willing to try is the work refusal piece, because the medical leave, it's coming from their sick days, right? And our sick days, especially if you're a teacher who's also a parent, sick days just like go like that. So, they're a bit more protective of those days. And I think knowing that we're also in a provincial bargaining year, I think there's just more hesitancy of like using those days as well, just not knowing what things are going to be looking like. So
Yes.
yeah, I think like there are those bigger boundaries of it shouldn't be me stepping away from this. Um, but also it's hard to advocate for things if folks aren't declaring unsafe work, if they aren't going on medical leaves and saying, "Hey, this is happening because of," and, like, reporting the medical leave through, like, a work safe process. Granted, I know nurses are more I was gonna say more hit for the medical leaves, but physically, yeah, they have the highest number of work safe claims in the province, and then I believe it's EAs are next on the list, and then, like, teachers are about like, primary teachers are about, like, a third maybe of, like, the EAs, that are off, like, with the work safe claims. So, it's sad data, um but yeah, like I think like there is a point where folks are just tired and exhausted of having to be the ones dealing with violence, and it's on them to mitigate.
Mhm. What do you think kind of, I don't know if it makes you angry, but like, what have you seen or experienced with both that is just, I think, like wild, or that just makes you so like frustrated or angry, but that like no one's talking about, like it's never getting said out loud?
Well, I think like the violence piece is something that's often there's a hesitancy to share that more publicly because of the connotations with the word violence. When I'm saying the word violence, I'm using it in like the work safe lens because that's what I'm working with as like a health and safety chair. And I feel people think like, well, violence, well, the kid is like too little to be violent, or like they weren't intending it to be violence, or excuse, excuse, excuse. And I think really it's regardless of intent or their age or whatever, what was experienced was violence. Um, and so let's talk about it. It's like this is what's happening because of the underfunded system.
Yes.
Again, we're not placing blame on the kid, and I think
No,
that's some of the hesitancy of, like, if we say violence is happening, then it's like, "Oh, well, how do we fix the kid?" Like, it's not a fix the kid
no.
issue, it's fix the system
System.
issue.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's fixed the system. And it is interesting that people are afraid to talk about it because the more, I mean, have we not learned that the more we keep things hidden, the more it grows like mushrooms? So we need to just get it out in the open because you're right. It's not about fixing kids. We don't need to fix the kids. The kids are great. We need the resources, we need the funding to make sure that everyone's just safe and happy and thriving and learning.
Yeah.
What grief are you seeing that teachers are carrying, and what grief do you see teachers carrying that the public is rarely seeing at the moment?
I think the grief of existing in the state of the world as it is right now, and then knowing when we come into our classrooms, it's we're here for the kids, we'll put a smile on, we'll be there to support them, but then, like, going home, it's still like, what what's going to be happening? Like, and I think, like, even in the week that it's been since we last spoke, like,
So
the
much has
world
happened.
has changed completely, and I think, like, that happens, but there's no acknowledgement of, "Okay, well, now teachers come to class, and if a student asks, how do we answer them?" I think there's a lot of that weighing on folks, and I think there's that financial worry, and especially, again, like, thinking of teachers who have kids, how are they like, their concerns for their own kids' safety, I think, in the world as it exists. Um but I know for me as a teacher, I was always thinking of like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening in the world. This is happening in the world. This is happening in the world. Come into my classroom. Okay, like let's learn how to read without books." No,
Yes.
with books that I have provided. Um,
One teacher, 28 students.
Yeah, so I think like from like violence piece where there is like worry of like, hey, when I go into work, I know violence is not in my job description, but I'm expecting to experience violence today. And how bad is it going to be? And I know that isn't the reality for all teachers in all classrooms. Um, but it is something that folks think about. But yeah, I'd say like with politically and globally and like the world out there is a scary place, and how do we create safe places in our classrooms, despite all that?
Absolutely, especially with this like doom scrolling term that I was introduced to last year. I remember just my brother-in-law saying it, and like he said, I'm just doom scrolling, and I was like, maybe you should stop. like like maybe that's part of also the problem of like no one reads newspapers anymore, or they're highly biased. But like even the other day, my husband came to me with like a headline, and I was like, "Where'd you get that? Get me Al Jazeera, like show me something else." And I just think, yeah, we're constantly getting hit with just headlines now, and it's so much. Then we're going in, and if you've got family, and I mean, so many different countries in the world, Venezuela comes to mind too. Like there's just so much happening, and I think also sometimes teachers get told what they can say and what they can't say, and that's another very difficult thing, I think, to live with.
Or if they're not told what they can and can't say, there's a question of what can I and can't
Yeah,
I say? Yeah.
100%. So how has being a teacher and being a union activist, how has that work changed how you see yourself?
I think because I'm a lot more knowledgeable about my rights under like our collective agreement and like through health and safety rights, like I think going back into the classroom like is going to help me just have better boundaries. Like when I first started my career, I was signing up to do like every extracurricular activity because I was like, you know what, that's going to make them like me is if I volunteer to do musical. Can I sing or dance? Not at all, but I will absolutely help with all like the directing and makeup and like all of that stuff. And so like
Is
I
that
got
how you met Alex?
it. No.
Did Oh, you didn't do her musical?
No, no. We when I was at the same school as her when I first moved here, it was just 1 year that we were together.
Yeah.
I was co-leading our drama club, but she wasn't involved in that yet because I think she was just thrown in the deep end of figuring out the
I
classroom stuff.
see.
Yeah. But yeah, like early on in my career, I was lining up to do everything and was happy to spend much time like at school. Like I voluntarily took students to France over spring break because I was like, this is like a great opportunity for them, for me, and I did it twice.
Wow.
We got robbed and everything while we were there, but I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's go again. But now I'm like, I'm not getting paid to go and spend time with students on spring break. And then just being more aware of my boundaries is going to make me feel a bit more empowered where like if I am having issues, whether it be with a student, a parent, with a colleague or whatever, I'm more knowledgeable in how to approach it. I think I'm more knowledgeable in how to approach conversations with admin. And so I think I'll be a better teacher because I know how to navigate situations in ways that respect my rights and also the rights of my colleagues. So, yeah.
Do you ever feel like you brought or bring the union work home? And what I kind of am trying to get to is, did you have a lot of when you started doing more time in the union office, did you have to really kind of like come to terms with who you are? Did you have like a self-reckoning or like a major self-reflection on any of that?
I think like with my first year in the office, because everything was new to me, I was like, I need to be connected with a counselor because like I don't want to be coming home like with like heavy feelings. Like I don't want to be bringing like the work, like the emotional side of the work home with me. At like so I reconnected with a counselor just to talk about some things there and just like some of the concerns with like if I mess up doing something like I'm going to get a section 12 with like the labor relations board and like I was like terrified that like
Wow.
there was so much like weight with the work of being involved in the union. um I think there are times where, like, I bring, like, the actual work home where I'll check my inbox, like, in the evening because I've had a day of meetings and haven't been able to check the inbox, and sometimes there's an emergency
Yes.
in there, so, like, the actual work I'll sometimes bring home, but otherwise when it's, like, inbox is closed or, like, I get home, it's like brain is off, I'm doing my own thing. I have worked really hard in the past 5 or so years in the classroom to set those good work-life boundaries. Um, I'm still trying to navigate that because this job is still new to me, and I think back to my first couple of years as a teacher where I was working longer days because I was still learning. Um, so yeah.
Does that mean last year when I met you was your first year in the office?
Yeah, last year was my first year in the office.
I never would have guessed that. I thought you were doing it for years. That's amazing.
I think part of it is because I'm a policy nerd. I was reading policy for fun. I was watching the board meetings on, like, Tuesday evenings
And
just because I wanted to know, like, well, if they're talking about things that's gonna affect my work, I wanna know what those conversations sound like. So
definitely.
I was using my free time to learn more about things, but yeah, yeah.
It's amazing. Um, That's amazing. I'm actually literally blown away. You've erased what I wanted to say. I That's so cool. Because yeah, I just like just the conversations we had, like, and I know we didn't see each other that often, but it felt like I always was really happy to see you and like
Yeah.
just have that calm you have a very calm authority, I
I
find.
love that.
Me too. I was like so and still am, of course, like drawn to you because it's so different than the manic energy that I bring to the table.
Yeah, I feel like I've lived through like my manic energy phase of like, this is an emergency.
Yes.
uh, and now I'm like, we're not saving lives here. This is work. I know when sometimes people ask, "Oh, tell me a bit about yourself," I would always start by saying I'm a teacher, and it's like, no, I'm not. I'm not my job. How else can I present myself to folks without like starting with the job piece of things? So I've tried to really chill out and find a bit of separation from my work identity.
Smart, which is
Mm,
amazing because you work 14-hour days
my gosh.
and Saturdays at least, so
I try to save Saturdays for PhD stuff, but
that is so smart that you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna be doing this big thing, and I wanna make sure I'm not taking those feelings back home." Is there any other ways that you kind of protect your mental health or strengthen your mental health besides counseling?
yeah, I think in my 5th year when I went on medical leave, I was at probably like the darkest point of like a mental health journey. I was seeing a counselor 3 times a week. It was really bad. I had like mental health check-ins like happening. Like it was dark. And I'm glad to have gotten out the other side of that because I didn't think I was going to. Um, and so, like, through that, though, I reconnected with art and I love making art. I love like little silly trinkets. Like, I have like these little like trolls beside me because like just seeing them like bring me joy. And so I think just filling my life with little things that bring me joy is huge. I love watching trash TV because I feel like my brain, I have so much academic, like big brain thinking things that I'm like, I need to come home and do the brain rot. And like Love Island, I will watch every episode, even though I see many problems with it, where it's just a bunch of like these thin bodied straight people um, together. And I'm like, this needs to be more queer and way more diverse. But I will watch that trash TV just to sort of balance out like the where my brain wants to go because otherwise I will overthink and like spiral into my overthinking and
Right, yeah.
scrolling that just happens in my head on a constant. So I try to find ways to like, distract my brain. So I've been getting back into reading for fun a bit more.
What's
Um,
that?
well, like with all the academic reading, I need something not as academic. Although the book I'm reading right now is Linguistic Feminist History, which is fascinating. Um, yeah, so like just trying to find like things that are not smart people things. Yeah. Yeah, trying to find ways to like move the body and like just spend time with folks and yeah.
Fabulous. Why did you decide to do your master's? You sound like a very busy person. When did
Yeah.
you decide that that was something you could take on?
I feel like this part might also like blow your mind. So
I'm excited. This is great.
so I have always been a student. Like I did like my undergrad, I did my Bachelor of Education. Then like I jumped right into the fitness world and I
Oh,
became a certified personal trainer because gotta
that
keep
does
learning.
that doesn't surprise me.
So I did like the personal training. I studied natural nutrition. And then I was like, I don't want to do like all like the like practicum side of that to become like a certified nutritionist. But like I was studying through their program and
Wow.
do nutrition courses because I was working on fitness competition. I was on stage in a bikini.
Cool.
Yeah.
Teachers are
So
the coolest people. You just need to start talking to them.
granted, like, my admin had pulled me aside, when they're like, "You can't be posting these fitness pictures," because, like, I was posting it in, like, workout
Yeah,
gear,
of
and so I had, like,
course.
sports bra and, like, whatever, and they're like, "No, you can't be posting that," and it's like, "But I'm like sponsored athlete right now. Like I have to
Yeah,
like have a
this is
public
expected.
facing page as well. Anyway, so I was studying personal training, natural nutrition, did my competition. Then I had enrolled in a master's of educational technology through UBC.
What is that?
But their online, portal was so poorly organized that, I missed the first. So I registered in my courses.
Oh, no.
I missed the first assignment because I couldn't access things, and so I got a 0 on it, and I was like, "I'm dropping out of the program. I don't fail things, so I will just quit." So so I quit my Master's of Ed Tech, and then I
Wow.
started my Master's of Education in Language and Literacy. And so I did complete that one. Um,
Yes.
and that one was part of my transition from Saskatchewan here because a program was on campus and then the school year was online. But yeah, so I did language and literacy. Um, and then through that, I was like, I'm going to do a PhD, and my PhD is going to be in language and literacy. But then no profs were taking any grad students, which was wild. I'm like, "I'm here with money to pay you," and, no one was taking grad students. Um, so I did something else, probably, other courses and stuff. I was always taking something.
Where do you find the
Um,
time?
I feel like if I don't fill up my schedule, then I get into mental health
Oh,
spiral. So, at one point, it was just I need to keep my mind busy. Um 'Cause, through, that fitness side of things, I was working out, an hour before work and an hour afterwards and, doing all the meal it was wild. But yeah, then the timing worked out well with, the PhD work because my interest for PhD stuff shifted from the language and literacy that I had worked with for my master's to what do, inclusive French immersion spaces look like. Um,
wow.
and
What do inclusive French immersion spaces look like or learning spaces look like?
yeah, yeah, and,
That's
that was, more
amazing.
coming from, knowing that French is a gendered language. How do we find, gender inclusion in French immersion? But then, inclusion in general because, there's, this elitism to French immersion that's, I know, folks think of it as the free private school.
Pretend.
Um, yeah, so I wanted to explore that, but then even, doing, finally getting into my PhD and doing that, I started just looking at, what does, queer inclusion look like in elementary schools? And so now I'm at, the data collection well, I finished my data collection, and so I'm doing the analysis side, but I'm looking at, what are the stories of queer teachers in BC public schools? And that's looking at, pre-SOGI 123 and post-SOGI 123, and now that, SOGI has sort of shifted, it's, post-SOGI. Um, yeah, so that's my little academic journey. I'm always learning something.
What you gonna do after you get your PhD?
I
Just
think I need to get back into playing video games and reading for fun and making art and hopefully just taking a break, but we'll see.
but who knows? Well, it
Yeah.
must be hard too because I do know that you like going to campus. Like, I
Yeah.
love photos.
Yeah. Yeah. Our campus is awesome. It's beautiful. Um, but I taught at UVic. I taught on campus la for about 2 years or so. I was teaching with them and then I've been
Wait,
doing guest lectures and stuff too. So
while you were also teaching?
yeah. So I've always been teaching full time.
Oh my
I
goodness. You're amazing. You're amazing.
Mhm.
Um, and you also have like a teachers pay teachers account that you like make you just like everything. Like, what is your partner okay? Like, I should have an episode with them.
I feel like we often talk about our favorite thing to do is be together but separate, where we're
Oh yeah,
physically together in the same room but doing our own separate things. And we do spend time making dinner together and catching up. We do
of
make
course.
sure to spend dedicated time together every single day. But I do I love my alone time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you love it more now that you are kind of like doing so much with the union and you always need to be with other people, talking to other people, making sure everyone's on the same page and a
Yeah.
lot of things,
Yeah, I think, like, my introvertism really shows because, like, I find, like, on the days where we have, like, those back-to-back meetings and I have to, like, spend time with people all day, like, I come home and I tell my partner, like, "Don't even look at me, like, don't come near me," like, I physically need, like, space as well. And yeah, and so, like, the weekends are almost sometimes, like, just recovering from being around people all week.
right?
Not as bad as being a classroom teacher, though, and just coming home after being with 26-year-olds.
Yes, it's very intense. So there's a lot of co-regulation happening.
Yeah.
What does solidarity, like the feeling, mean to you?
Mm.
Not necessarily the idea, but just like how does solidarity feel to you?
I feel like I think it feels strong. Because like, when you feel it, it's like if one of us, like, isn't able to stand up and do something, like, we have, like, a collective of people that is, like, we are holding each other up, when you individually aren't able to for whatever reason. So I think it's that, like, strength. I think it's being supported. There's like, you're gonna be working with folks, like, who have different opinions than you and who have different identities from you, and I think just, like, that solidarity is, like, regardless of that, like, we are here together, and I think of it almost like a braid, like, you have, like, the single strands that are, like, weak and frail, but, like, then when you actually braid it together, there's strength and, like, it's harder to pull people apart.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really good. For the teachers who are listening right now, what would you say to them if they're feeling really isolated, really alone? What kind of advice or what would you say to them to help them?
I think, like, even though you're feeling alone, know that you aren't. There are always folks who feel alone in this work. And I think, like, if you're in the classroom where you are the adult and you're with all these children, like, that can feel alone even when you're surrounded by people. Know that, like, there are supports and resources for you, like, if you are having a tough time. And if you're not having a tough time and you are still feeling like, what, I'm feeling, like, a bit isolated, like, there are communities of folks, like, you just have to find that community, and I know it can take a while, and if it doesn't yet exist, like, I'm thinking right now to some, like, grants that we've applied for, to create those communities. So, like, as a queer educator, like, I often felt alone, but, like, I was able to get a grant to have, like, queer teacher meetups, and I was like, "No one's gonna come to this, like, who has the energy for this?" But, like, even though, like, you can get, like, 1 or 2 people, like, you can find and build that community, and then, like, you don't need a grant to do it, but,
But it
I think
helps.
it's really, like, if you have the capacity to have some initiative to, like, offer that space, look for that or find someone else who you don't know in the building and just go have a conversation. Like, I started carrying snacks in my drawer, and when I found, like, a colleague that was having a tough time, I was like, "You need a chocolate? Come on over," and, like, that just built, like, a really good friendship from that, so
Yeah.
um, it can be isolating, like, reach out. I know it's easy to fall into, like, despair, but, like, reaching out is a huge thing or, like, finding community, wherever you can.
No, absolutely. I think community is what's going to save all of us right now.
Yeah.
The more that we can like talk to people, even when we're exhausted, if you've got 5 minutes, stand up and talk to the nearest person. Or if you already know you like someone and maybe you could talk to them more, go and find them because that's really important. And I love the idea of like, yeah, get a group together. And if you only get two, I feel like sometimes you only will get one or two people because the other people are like, I don't know if this is going to be good or not. And then those people though can go to say like, hey, no, this is really good. You should come join us. And it becomes bigger. Like everything does take time.
Mhm. We started a book club, at our school where, like, it was, like, people are just reading their own books and then just coming together to just talk, but it was book club, and a nice gentle way of bringing in folks, and then we did, like, a book exchange where we would draw names and, like, then get a book for each other too, like, it it was really sweet, and I really enjoyed like that piece of community building. Know that it doesn't have to happen in the school either. Like you can go like outside in the world and find people too. I found like in like my Pilates class, like I do it because I like being alone and just like finding movement. But the moments where the instructor's like, oh, and we're going to do this, I'll look over at the next person and be like, my body ain't doing that. And then there's like a little bonding there. Um, yeah. So it doesn't have to be like teacher or like work colleagues that are your community.
No. Yeah, and I love going to Taranis CrossFit because it is like I get someone to tell me exactly what to do, and, depending on the coach, I can talk back a little bit. And then, yeah, then you're always doing it with people that you're just like, "Why did we pay to do this? Why are we here?" But sometimes I certainly find I absolutely hate change, but I definitely find myself consistently running towards challenges. Like I'm like I cannot stop myself. But I hate change. Like I remember the year that I started to work at the same school as Alex actually. We had it was the same year as COVID, so it was the year 2020, and we had just moved into a new apartment, and we had just gotten a cat, and I was starting a new school, and our daughter was starting a new school, my husband was starting a new school. I think there was two other things, and I was wrecked. It did end up being the year I went on a medical leave as well, not just because I don't like change, but it is just so interesting. This like I need to challenge myself, but it's also going to potentially make me physically ill. But yeah, like if I can do it in community, like in a class where other people are doing like the same evil thing, like CrossFit or Pilates, like it's all evil. I don't do Pilates because when I was doing physio on my knee, I had to be in a Pilates machine, and I was like, "Oh, I hate like, I'm not doing this. I'm not paying someone to have fun watching me do this. Like, at least this is a medical professional of some kind."
Yeah.
So, good for you because that looks so hard. I even heard a thing where Simone Biles went to go do a Pilates thing, and she was like, "This is nuts. You're insane. It's so hard."
Love that for me.
So that's very cool.
Eh,
See, you run Saskatchewan, Pilates, running towards those challenges. It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and for the 30 minutes it took me to get this thing rolling and then for going even more overtime than that. So I appreciate it.
all good, all good. I appreciate the invite to be here to speak like to you and like to people that are going to be listening to this. Like that's also super exciting that you're finding space to bring community together and share it out with community. Yeah, so thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm actually loving it because it goes like I can see like the numbers on Apple Podcasts and YouTube, and it's kind of cool the amount of people that are listening in or watching. I think this is going to be an amazing wealth of knowledge, and I hope really something that makes teachers think, how can I navigate the classroom or the school that I'm in? So, thank you so much.